You didn't see it coming. One week, you were talking every day. The next week, silence. No warning. No real closure. Just a shift in tone, a sudden misunderstanding, and then distance. Now you're replaying every conversation in your head. What did I say wrong? Why did it change so fast? How did something that felt secure end so abruptly? But here's the question no one is asking. What if the distance wasn't destruction, but direction? Stay with me. Chosen one. This separation might have been necessary. When a relationship ends suddenly, it shakes you. Especially when there wasn't a dramatic explosion, no screaming match, no final, definitive moment, just confusion, a coldness where warmth used to live. Maybe there were misunderstandings recently, words taken the wrong way, intentions misread, energy slightly off. You tried to explain yourself, but it didn't land. You tried to fix it, but the effort felt one-sided, and slowly, the space between you widened. The pain of that kind of distance is quiet but sharp, because it makes you question yourself. Were you too much, not enough, too distant, too honest? And when you don't get clarity, your mind fills in the blanks. Chosen one, let's slow this down. Not every separation is sabotage. Not every misunderstanding is meant to be resolved. Sometimes, distance reveals what closeness was hiding. When you are inside a relationship, you see it through emotion, through attachment, through shared history. But distance creates perspective. When space enters the equation, patterns become clearer. You start to see what you tolerated. You start to notice where you overextended. You start to recognize where you were shrinking to maintain harmony. Clarity often comes after separation, not before it. Have you experienced this recently? A connection that ended quickly, leaving you confused but strangely aware. If so, comment clarity came later. I want to know how many of you realized the truth only after the distance happened. And if you're willing, share what you finally saw once the emotions settled. If this message resonates with you and you feel like God is guiding you through a deeper season of prayer, I left a spiritual prayer resource in the description if you want to explore it. Because many chosen ones don't realize that isolation is sometimes revelation. Here is something powerful. If everything stayed comfortable, you would never be forced to evolve. If that relationship never shifted, you might still be compromising your standards. If those misunderstandings never happened, you might still be ignoring red flags. Comfort rarely pushes transformation. Disruption does. Distance forces you inward. It makes you examine your patterns. It makes you confront your attachments. It makes you redefine your boundaries. Without separation, growth can stall. Think about it. When everything feels secure, you don't question much. You stay in routines. You accept dynamics as normal. You overlook subtle misalignments because nothing feels urgent. But when something leaves suddenly, unexpectedly urgency appears. You start asking deeper questions. What do I truly value? What kind of connection do I actually deserve? Was I settling in ways I didn't admit? The space creates introspection, and introspection creates maturity. Chosen one, being misunderstood is painful. Feeling isolated in your own story hurts. When people misinterpret your silence as pride, when they label your boundaries as distance, when they assume your growth is arrogance, it can feel unfair. But sometimes misunderstanding is the separating line between levels. If they cannot understand who you are becoming, they may only resonate with who you were. And if they are attached to your old version, Your evolution will feel like rejection to them. That does not mean you are wrong. It means you are rising. There is also another truth. Some relationships end not because of one big issue, but because of accumulated misalignment. Small differences in values, small differences in ambition, small differences in vision. Over time, those small gaps widen, and eventually, the tension becomes too noticeable to ignore. The distance that forms is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet agreement between two souls who are no longer heading in the same direction. Let me say something clearly. Distance is not always loss. Sometimes it is preparation. Preparation for healthier dynamics. Preparation for clearer standards. Preparation for relationships that align with your current identity, not your past survival mode. If that connection had not ended, you might not have redefined your worth. If that person had not misunderstood you, you might not have strengthened your communication. If that season had not closed, you might not have stepped into this new awareness. Separation exposes what attachment hides. It is easy to romanticize what ended, to remember only the good moments, to replay the highlights and ignore the inconsistencies. But distance gives you the gift of objectivity. You begin to see the full picture, not just the comfort, but the compromises, not just the affection, but the imbalance, not just the closeness, but the limitations. And once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Chosen one. Sometimes what leaves creates room for what fits. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. Positioned to outgrow certain habits. Positioned to refine your standards. Positioned to meet people who understand your growth instead of resisting it. And yes, it may feel lonely right now, but loneliness during transformation is temporary. Stagnation is permanent. Distance may feel like isolation, but isolation during preparation is strategic. Here is the message you must anchor. The distance was necessary. Necessary to sharpen your vision, necessary to strengthen your boundaries, necessary to detach you from dynamics that no longer served your calling. If everything stayed, you would not move. If everyone remained, you would not reflect. If nothing shifted, you would not stretch. Sometimes, separation is the catalyst. Before you go, I want you to reflect deeply. In the comments, share about a relationship that ended or shifted suddenly. What did you feel? At first, confusion, anger, sadness, and now, looking back, what clarity did the distance give you? Write honestly. Write more than one line, and then read someone else's story. Encourage them. Let them know that separation is not always failure. Sometimes it is formation. If you feel called to go deeper in your spiritual journey, I left a prayer resource in the description that many people have been using during seasons like this. Chosen one, the distance was not random, it was necessary. And what comes next will require the version of you that this separation created.